Get this, you can now craft saddles in Minecraft. This is a boost to the early game that we've been asking for, and Mojang has delivered. They've also delivered on giving us the easiest to obtain music disc yet. Look at this white disc called Tears. I'll be telling that to you, alongside explaining the brand new nerfs that they've just made to these structures, the dungeon, the ancient city, and the stronghold, as well as everything else inside of the latest snapshot and beta. Because hello, I'm AbbyXToyCat, this is an update news video, and there are a big set of changes that Minecraft are making in the run up to the end of the summer drop. That is an update coming out very soon. How soon, you'll learn about in this video, but if you want to learn about each of the individual sections and skip ahead, then the chapters will be right below the subscribe button. But for now, let's get started on the big new thing, the most important change, the saddle. It is now officially craftable, which means having too many of them is no longer a sign that you've fought too many raids, but instead is a sign that you've made some pretty poor crafting decisions, because this is a very early game recipe, just 3 leather and a piece of iron. It makes it very easy to obtain, which is important because Minecraft have been adding the saddle as a way to get more and more mobs with the strider and then the camel, and so having a way to just make it if you have the ingredients is great. However, the aforementioned nerf that I spoke about is the fact that it does come with a nerf to how you find it in the wild, because if the saddle is going to be craftable, then it doesn't need to be a rare thing that you find in dungeons, desert temples, jungle temples, ancient cities, and strongholds, and so instead where you would have found saddles before in any of these places, now you'll find piles of 1 to 5 leather. This is really interesting because leather by itself will not craft you a saddle, and so this is quite a big nerf, you could argue, because you're not guaranteed to get iron alongside of it. However, each of the chests that does have the saddle and now has leather actually has a chance of giving you iron as well, so you've got a real chance of getting one of the 3 in 5 chances of getting enough leather and then also getting iron ingots. However, yeah, saddles in the wild will get rarer because saddles that you craft will become more common. I think that this is an entirely worthwhile trade, and it has the very nice small benefit of if you do find leather in a chest and you already have enough saddles because your friend's been killing ravagers even though you really haven't had a need to for quite some time, but if that is you and you've got too many saddles, then the leather can be used for other things like item frames for describing how you make saddles. Anyway, one of the other fun changes they've made at the same time here is they've made it so that shears are more valuable. So this is my good friend the horse, and if I put a saddle on him, or indeed if I put horse armor on him, I can now shear those off using, well, shears. This is really cool because, I mean, it's a bit weird to think about a horse as being shearable, but if you have a friend who has a lot of diamond armor and is very forgetful, you can create yourself a diamond horse armor farm by simply shearing his horse every time you see it. Similarly, something interesting has changed with how shears interact with sheep, because now that these shears are becoming the go-to way to take things off a mob, it means that if you have a mob which has a shear function and a lead attached, the lead will take the priority, which means instead of me being able to shear this mob and getting the brown wool of him, instead I take away the lead first, and only when he's unled can I take away his wool. Speaking of taking away people's wool, I do think that it's really important to note that there are quite a few music changes, which are probably the next biggest features in this update, but I want to show those off on Java for a reason that will become very clear soon. However, in the meantime, here's a fun few miscellaneous changes that they've made, the most interesting one being that the dried ghast will no longer break if water flows into it. Also, the way that nether fossils are found on Bedrock has been upped to match its Java equivalent. These are great parity changes. However, one that I'm not that big of a fan of is they've removed the semicolon debug key. This used to be something you could press to immediately turn off vibrant visuals, or deferred rendering before that, and it was so useful for being able to see what deferred rendering looked like versus regular Minecraft, and even with vibrant visuals, you can be looking at something like the sugarcane farm and wonder, is something wrong there? And now if you want to change it, instead of pressing a single button, you have to press escape or the pause button. You have to go into your options menu, then scroll down to video, go all the way to the bottom, and then you can change it to fancy. And I just think that this is a huge user quality of life downgrade. I could see the argument for not having a keybind by default, but not giving me that keybind at all just makes my Minecraft worse. And I'm going to be honest with you, if I have to choose vibrant visuals on all the time or off all the time, I think I'm more likely to pick off all the time, which is a shame because I love the way that this looks in a lot of settings. I don't love the way it performs on my Xbox One though, which is why we'll jump over to the Java for some music. Because thanks to Harrison, we've actually been able to go into the game files and find each of these tracks, which means I can play them just like this. Okay, that's kind of good, I guess. A little bit nostalgic. Then we've got Broken Clocks. I mean, people say it's only right twice a day, but I reckon this could be right a lot more. Then we've got fireflies. You would not believe your eyes if 10 million fireflies lit up the world as I fell asleep. Which is confusing because we have a song called Firebugs. It's also worth mentioning we have a song called like Far Below, as well as Below and Above. Anyway, but we've got fireflies. Following that, we have Lily Pad. Ooh, super epic there. But then finally, we have O's piano. You know what's weird is all of these new tracks have a kind of similar vibe to each other, and I think that they all feel like very modern Minecraft. Like, we've gone away from the old school piano into like kind of like almost post-apocalyptic, if you know where I feel with that. It's super, super interesting, but the most interesting disc of all is this one. So this is Amos Roddy, Tears. So this is our first music disc from them, and also it represents our first music disc to be so easily obtained. How do you get it? Well, you punch a ghast, you punch one of its fireballs back at it. It has to be a non-happy ghast, and if you do, you should get one of these, which sounds like this. Honestly, I am so torn on this one. I think about half of people are like, yeah, this is incredible. This is the biggest bop ever. I've heard some people saying it's like going for a horror vibe. And I guess in that way, I see how it's sort of not that horrifically far from Pigstep. Personally, I think it's good. I don't think it's like the best music disc ever. Maybe this will grow on me in the future. Maybe this is the song I'll be thinking about in the shower. But for now, I've got to say it's pretty good. And that represents the end of our music section. Now we're going to move into the Java version, since we're here anyway, and we're going to talk about the Java-only features in this snapshot preview. So right now, and for most of the summer drop, we've been seeing these same features come for both Bedrock and Java at the same time. However, this week's Java snapshot has a couple of features not found on Bedrock, and sadly, we think that probably one of them won't come. So the first one is this brand new Panorama. You can see right here, there's a few happy ghasts, some are saddled, some are not. There's even a dried ghast in part of this. But what's interesting about this is probably being added to Bedrock right now. It's just you can't tell in Bedrock because the preview doesn't have that, information visible. So yeah, right now this is probably in Bedrock too, but then there are some brand new settings just for Java, and that is in music and sound. You can see music frequency, it's an option. You can change it from default to frequent to constant. Apparently this is an issue a lot of people have with Minecraft music. You don't hear it very often. I have the opposite problem. I've had to turn mine off. But what's interesting about this is that there's also a brand new option for show music toast. And I know that when you hear show music toast, you can't help but picture, like a musical inanimate piece of bread that's maybe gone through the toaster for too long. But what's interesting is this is a brand new setting in game, and it should look something like this. If we imagine it appears on the menu screen, and it's there to tell you that a new music track is playing. I love this. This is a great way to teach people what music is actually playing, and as someone who loves Minecraft music, even sometimes I don't necessarily notice when something starts playing, having that music toast would be awesome. However, just like subtitles, which are absolutely required for like a decent percentage of the world population, I think making UI changes to Bedrock is a multi-year task, and in the same way that adding, vibrant visuals to Java is going to take them no doubt a decent year or two, I imagine it's the same thing with this sort of change to Bedrock. There are just ways that the Java team is able to work efficiently, adding something, within days of wanting to do it, that the Bedrock team is not able to, and vice versa. And sadly, that's one of those things we just can't explain. Perfect way of putting it. Also, here we are, look, you can see there's a dried ghast in this cave here. That's a really good question. Why are there dried ghasts in this cave? Also, here's a fun little Easter egg if you want to see it. do you know, right there above the O in my options, now kind of scrolling to the left and just behind my menu, you can see there's a single experience point, and so whoever took this panorama must have killed a mob just over there next to that dripstone. I love silly things like that, and maybe you do too. But you can't explain how this video is going to end, because I think it's important, now that I've shown you everything, to give my opinion on each of it, as well as talk about what this means for the release of the update more broadly, because I think that is coming very, very soon, and that is usually evidenced by the panorama changing and the music disc. But first things first, let's talk about what the saddles being craftable means. This is the biggest change they're making in a while, and honestly, the reason that I think it's so spicy is because for a lot of people, the saddles have been this uncraftable thing for so long, and now it's effectively going to devalue. But the upside of that is it makes, horses a more valuable early game movement tool. Some people will just say like, well, the elytra is the best forever, but that's why the saddle being craftable is great. It means this, the horses get more playtime in the game because you're not going to immediately get a boat and some ice or an elytra. I love this as a change, and I think that it's long overdue. It is technically the game designers boxing themselves into a corner. You could argue that like, well, once you make something craftable, you can never make it uncraftable again, and there are some items in Minecraft that need to be uncraftable, you might argue, but I think that personally this is entirely fine, and I think it's actually a great change. I feel a bit more mixed on the music. I'm such a Minecraft music head, I literally will listen to the playlists while I'm in the shower or in the car sometimes, but personally I do have to say that all of this music is the tiniest bit, like vibing like old or new old Minecraft music, and I do think that there's this bit of a problem in that, like, yeah, even the music disc is a bit too easy to obtain for my liking, but that's something I think I should test. In my series, where I'm actually testing things fully in survival uncut, I think that it'd be fun to play around with the saddles, see how usable they are, and then try and get the new music disc to see if it's actually a tad too easy, because right now it's the easiest by far, which means it doesn't fit the kind of epic vibes that they're going for. I hope that that is something that they change. It's the one thing about this update that I'm not that sure on right now, but otherwise, if you want to be sure about something, I think the final point that we're going to make is that this update is coming soon. I had a little bit of a concern because they deleted the tweet announcing it be coming out in June. I assumed, therefore, that this update might be delayed into July so they could put more time into it. After all, I mean, it's not that feature-rich, right? But I think that if we look at the current beta number, 1.21.90.25, I think that that's a real sign that we've got maybe one, maybe two bug fixes to go. There's a very small but real chance that this is the final version, but I would expect to see one more beta and preview, and then we start the certification process. And so if you're me and need to plan your holiday time around this, basically, I think that means we're going to be seeing a mid-June release date for this update. Very, very exciting, if you ask me. But speaking of things you ask me, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope it answered all of your questions, and I hope you enjoyed this fast, fun format, because if you want to see a more long and drawn-out way of checking out the update, I'm going to be doing that on Thursday. Should be a lot of fun. Oh, by the way, if you're curious about the streams, I'm picking up the car on Thursday. I'm very excited. Hope it doesn't break on the drive home. That'd make me feel bad. Anyway, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.